Hi everyone, this is Elena of The Witch's Box, and I'm here today with another episode of Witch Booktube, and today's book comes with many, many layers, so listen, grab a drink, get comfy, get cozy, settle in, because we're going to be talking for a hot minute about a couple of different things, okay? So today's book is called Fire Cider, 101 Zesty Recipes for Health-Boosting Remedies, and it's by Rosemary Gladstar and friends. So listen, you're like, what, a cookbook? Listen, there's a lot to talk about here. Especially if you're a witch, which I'm assuming you are since you're watching the Witch's Box video. So this is the book. The first thing I want to cover about this book, this is the back. You look at, first of all, the little gold stars. I love it. But the design in this book is epic. I'm going to just take about 30 minutes. I'm exaggerating, but only by a little bit. 30 minutes to basically show you as many pages as I can get away with showing you in this book. There is not one page in this book, you got all my writing, there's not one page in this book that isn't illustrated. Look at how beautiful. And that's not to say, sometimes when you get a book and there's all sorts of really great illustration, but there isn't a lot of information. There's so much information in this book. Like there's also photography, but the design, look at these illustrations. Do you see this? Again, more notes because, I'm a note taker. So beautiful. This is every single page. The first thing I did when I got this book was just look through every single page from the beginning to the end, just so that I can take in the gloriousness of how colorful and how happy and how celebratory it was. We'll talk about this too in a second. Just so beautiful. Look at this. Stop. I can't stop myself. Look at how beautiful. Look at how beautiful. Okay, so that's the first layer of this book. The design is exquisite. It's beautiful. The artist took a lot of time to really come on. My dream come true is to have my entire life designed like this. Just so beautiful. Okay, so the design, A++++, 555, like 5 stars. Like it's beautiful. I really appreciate the love and the care and the artistry that went into this book. Gorgeous. The second thing about this book, and I'm circling around. I'll get to what Fire Cider is in a second. I'll get to the why, but there's a list of things that I really want to share about this book. At the time that this book was being written and was coming out, there was a huge legal battle in the United States around the term Fire Cider. I'm going to read the dedication of the book so that then I can go into the legal battle that went around this term in that time. So this book is dedicated to 3 feisty herbal activists who co-founded Tradition, Not Trademark, and the Free Fire Cider movement. Those 2 names are important. I'll link to the stuff below because I think it's an important thing to kind of be educated on, to help ensure that traditional herbal products, especially those with a long history of use, remain community-owned and trademark-free. These herbalists took a stand to protect the legacy of our herbal traditions. Kathy Langelier of Herbal Revolution, Mary Blue of Pharmacy Herbs, and Nicole Telkes of Wildflower School of Botanical Medicine, we salute you. So, Fire Cider is an herbal remedy that is created out of a base of apple cider vinegar. Depending on where you're located in the United States or in the northern continent, your recipe might vary depending on whether it was passed down from generation to generation, whether you are in the South as opposed to the Pacific Northwest, right? What was available to you to make. And the idea behind Fire Cider is to make a drink with botanicals and apple cider vinegar, which have an incredible amount of healing properties, to help sustain your immune system through the fall into the winter season when people tend to get more sick. It is a remedy, an herbal remedy, and depending on your family or your teacher or whoever it is that passed down the recipe to you, those recipes are going to vary. They vary too because as we start to change and we start to play with our own recipes, sometimes we like certain flavors and sometimes we don't. Some people add honey, some people don't. It varies from person to person, and it varies from recipe to recipe, and it varies throughout generations. This has been a remedy that we have been using here in various ways for countless, you can probably count them, countless decades, okay? So the idea here is that this is a traditional remedy that varies from person to person. No one owns it. No one invented it. Maybe they did, but it's something that is now part of a grander healer tradition. And I don't remember the year. I'll try to link to this below. But it was sometime between 2016 and 2018, because I think that the lawsuit ended in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Again, don't hold me to this, but I know that it was in that gap of years. There was a business that came about and who decided that they invented the word fire cider, they trademarked the word fire cider, and then they proceeded to go after a bunch of small business, cottage industry, herbalists and healers who were selling their own recipes for fire cider on things like Etsy or their own personal websites, as herbalists and healers do. So they were going after these businesses saying, you can't use this. But the thing is that this is a recipe that's been around in various forms forever. And this couple, I think there were a couple, they are actually still in business with the fire cider product, decided that they just owned it. And so these 3 women that were named here, along with a larger group of herbalists, came together to file a suit saying this trademark needs to be revoked. You can't trademark tradition. That's where their organization, Tradition Not Trademark, came about. You can't own tradition. This is something that's been passed down. There is no ownership. There is no one recipe. You can't trademark this. In the end, long story short, they won. And fire cider by the United States of America has been termed as a generic name. It is not a product. It's not a singular recipe. It's not trademarkable because it's a generic name for a type of recipe, which is a huge triumph. A triumph that we probably didn't need to have, but it is what it is, right? Because we are now in a highly commodifiable culture where people just decide to take possession and ownership of shit that they have no business taking ownership and selling, right? So that is the first layer to this book. And it also highlights the beauty of and the power of community. You have the herbalist healer community who felt so strongly about this that they wanted to protect the tradition so much that they went to court and did a costly battle in court to create safety around this tradition, which I think is a beautiful thing, and that they won is amazing, and it's probably a lovely silver lining in a decade that's been kind of like, who knows. So there's that. When you read the book, there will be information about how this went about with links and in different places to look for more information. So there's that layer to the history around this book that I think is really important. This is more than just a recipe book. One of the things that really resonated with me was this idea of protecting the traditional, this idea of protecting our own personal, not just recipes, but our own personal gnosis and experimentation around certain product or certain remedies, solutions, healing. And it can apply to spells, it can apply to our spiritual practices. We take these things because I think this is true of herbalists as it is of witches, because there's so much overlap in those two communities. We really put a lot of stock in our own personal gnosis and our own personal inquiry and excavation and experimentation. We are like scientists in that way, hopefully, most of us, please. And so what I find beautiful about this particular thing of fire cider is that no one way gets you what you want. The idea behind a fire cider is an immune boost. This is a healing remedy. So I love that there are literally 101 recipes here, although not all of them. I would say the last quarter of the book are a couple of other healing remedies that aren't necessarily focused on apple cider vinegar and fire cider. But there are recipes on cooking food with fire cider, which is also really excellent. In any case, there is no one way to get there. I think that's so beautiful that you can create your own personal fire cider recipe based on what's locally available to you, what is in communion with the land that you live on, what makes sense for your own health constitution. Some people can't have a lot of garlic. Some people can't have a lot of horseradish. Like, it just depends. And so the idea of this kind of living formula that is malleable, that is customizable, is, I think, what is at the heart of being a healer and being a witch. We pay attention, we listen, we inquire what would work most in this situation, what makes most sense for that person and not necessarily that person. This is the attention and the intuition and that muscle that is part of being a witch, where you tune in and you pay attention and you listen and you inquire. They don't talk about that specifically, but really that is what being a healer and being a witch is about in many ways. And so I love that this book came with this kind of history. And I also love that this is a book that we should probably all be looking into if we don't have our own personal healing protocols. Obviously, yes, I have to do the whole thing where I give you a little disclaimer that if you feel sick or that if you want some sort of health support, you need to seek help from a professional. But the reality is that we have a lot of tools at our fingertips, and we are not having enough conversations. We are not having enough conversations about what it would be like or what it takes to create a health supporting practice for ourselves. We talk a lot right now about infection and pandemic, and people are getting sick, and one of the ways to not get sick is to avoid people and to wear masks and all of these different things. But we're not having, especially at least that I've seen in our witchcraft community, we're not having enough conversations or any at all about, hey man, what's going to help support your health? What is going to help support your immune system? What are your healing remedies? What are your herbal remedies? What's your protocol? We're witches. Most of us, we work with herbs, we work with the land, we work with earth, we work with the spirit, we work with our practices. I really want to have, and I really want to see all of you having conversations about ways to support your health. Period. This is a great way to do that. I would love to see that all of us have our own personal fire cider remedy. Fire cider, like at its base, like a really basic fire cider recipe is apple cider vinegar in a big jar that you fill with garlic, horseradish, ginger, chili peppers, garlic, I'm missing something, but that's kind of a good base. And you stick it all in the jar. You close it, and every day you shake it for about 4 to 6 weeks. I go the long haul, go 6 weeks, and you shake and you shake and you shake. And at the end of that 6 weeks, you open it up, you strain out all of the vegetable material or botanical material, and you've got this amazing drink that you drink. You can do a shot every day, and then you just keep making more and more, and it supports your immune system. Okay, I'm just going to read you a couple of things. One of them is that people take fire cider as a daily tonic to keep themselves healthy throughout the winter. They took it at the first sign of a cold or the flu to mobilize their immune system. They drank it diluted in a little warm water or juice as an energizing winter drink. They added it to soups, salad dressings, and other dishes for the extra kick. They found myriad ways to use it. It is supposed to be antifungal, antimicrobial. In some cases, some say antiviral. That's not proven, but that's the folk wisdom. These are some of the traditional folk uses for apple cider vinegar. They help eliminate leg cramps. They help with stuffy noses, sore throats, stomach problems. They help break fever, exhaustion. They help give you a little kick of energy. They help with sunburn. It helps with fungal infections. It helps with heartburn, and it helps as a hair rinse. It gives you a lot of shine and healthy hair. When you add things to it, like chili or turmeric as well, horseradish, ginger, onion, and garlic, you add the antifungal, antimicrobial elements to it. These are the things that we need to know. These are the things that we need to study. These are the things that we really need to educate ourselves on, because we are responsible to ourselves and to the greater community. And there are things at our disposal that we can nourish ourselves with and protect our energy with. So I really love that this is here. I really want to see more witches talking about their remedies and what they're doing. Always add the caveat that you need to see a professional, because at this point, legalities are just rampant and people sue each other for everything. Use your common sense. Check in with yourself when things feel like they're dire, when you can't really go through your day well. Seek professional help always. But there are ways that we can be promoting our health, supporting our health, and nourishing ourselves in a way that is helpful. Do those things, learn those things, talk about those things, and share those things with each other. This is one way of doing that, this book. I love that they did this. I love the recipes in this book. There are many, 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 many ways to experiment with fire cider. This book will provide you with a lot of that. Again, I just thumbed through it because it's so beautiful, but the recipes are great. So here's what I want you guys to do. I want all of you to get on social media and take pictures of your fire cider jar, your concoctions, your recipes, and then tag us as @thewitchesbox, or hashtag #thewitchesbox, because we'd love to see what you're doing with your own personal home remedies, how you're supporting your immune system. What are your concoctions? If you make fire cider, I want to see your bottles. I want to see your jars. I want to see what your recipe is. If you feel comfortable sharing that, and tag us, and we will check those out. We repost those, but I really would love to see that. So 2 things: hashtag us, hashtag #thewitchesbox, or @thewitchesbox. Okay, that's it. See you next week. Take care, be safe, and stay magical.